Welcome to the Skillfully podcast. Skillfully offers world-class courses for high achievers, and you will find us at skillfully.co.za. And today we are with Ashlea Evans, who's the founder of The King's Speech. Ashlea is an international TV reporter, media trainer, and communications expert. And she's worked for organizations including CNBC Africa, Al Jazeera News in Washington, D.C., Business Affair, and ABC News. And after years of interviewing world leaders and top business executives who've struggled on camera, Ashlea founded The King's Speech to help people make the most of media opportunities. We are really delighted that she's offering the course Media Training on Skillfully. Ashlea, it's great to speak to you today.
Thank you.
I want to kick off with a simple question, which is, who should think about taking media training and at what stage in their career?
Well, traditionally what we saw is only spokespeople or top executives were being media trained because those were the individuals that were interfacing with the media. But what we've seen since COVID is that more and more of us are using virtual platforms to present. And whether it be webinars, whether it be actual interviews, speaking to clients, we're all now sitting on our laptops in these virtual platforms and having to speak to a camera. And at the end of the day, this is media training that is required. And so often you see people in different webinars who don't look through the lens of the camera, who perhaps don't speak clearly or don't set up their background correctly. So at the moment, I believe everyone is needing media training because communications is so important, whether it be with your clients or internally. And we need to learn how to master the skill of communications.
So actually, it sounds like part of your answer is, okay, in the past, some people might have thought, well, I'm the public face of the company. I'm a sort of media representative. It might be suitable for me, but everybody else would have thought that's not appropriate. But now we're all broadcasters. That's what we do for quite a lot of the day.
Absolutely.
And so media training is very broadly applicable.
It is, indeed.
Well, I don't know if you ever meet people who say, look, I've got some media engagements coming up, but I don't really need media training because I'm going to face the media in a very simple, straightforward way. I'll be clear about my message and I'll express things compactly and I'll be candid. And what more do I need? Well, what would you say to people like that?
Well, Greg, I love the one quote from Warren Buffett. He says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and just 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about that, you'll do things differently. And I think that really sums it up. When you are stepping in front of the lens, you are putting out to all of your stakeholders, all your clients, all the public, a message, an image, whatever it might be. And those need to be carefully thought out and structured prior to going in front of the camera. So another important thing to remember, and I always tell my clients this, is you're not just going to take an interview for the sake of taking an interview. You take an interview because you have an agenda of your own. And you have to ask yourself prior to that interview, what is my agenda? What do I want audience members to walk away with, thinking, doing, or feeling? And in order for me to achieve that, what key messages do I need to put across in my interview? And that needs to be thought of prior to that interview, because every time that reporter asks you a question, you need to think of your key messages and see how you can bring those in so that at the end of the day, you fulfill your agenda. And it's not about being straightforward. It's about thinking ahead of time what message you want to leave your audience members with. And it's also about thinking about what tough questions you could get, what potentially could be thrown your way, and how are you going to handle that difficult question. And sometimes it takes a team of people to figure out what the correct answers are or what those tough questions could be. And that takes preparation. It's not simply walking into a studio and thinking that you know your stuff. It truly takes hard work, preparation, and forethought prior to sitting in that hot seat.
It sounds like part of what you're saying is Look, it's completely naive to think, well, I'm going there honest with a pure heart and I'll answer questions and we'll have a conversation. But this is an opportunity for strategizing and systematic preparation of all kinds, including risk assessment and risk management.
Because every time you step in front of that lens, you are potentially putting yourself at risk. You don't know what potential crises question could be thrown your way, and how are you going to handle that? So those are very important things. It's not like simply stepping onto the stage. You plan beforehand. In the same way that in life we have a gym trainer, we have someone who sits down with us prior and helps us, plan for a big race. That's something people do in their private lives. Why aren't they doing that in their professional life too?
Yes. So if you were to be asked for some advice, somebody said, Ashley, can you give me an example of something essential to keep in mind if I've got an approaching interview? It sounds like your advice would be on the lines of careful, systematic, strategic thinking beforehand.
Absolutely. And something we have in a media training course is a specific rundown that helps people prior to an interview structure what their key messages are going to be. And it's a series of questions that will obviously help you get there at the end of the day. But these are important questions to answer in order to deliver the correct key messages. So that planning really is vital.
It's fascinating, and I guess part of what is so interesting is that great performers make it seem so natural before the media. But what you're saying is they have planned a great deal in a very expert way, presumably assisted by experts. Now, you regularly advise global organizations on brand management, reputation management. Do you have maybe a few tips that are not too hard to share about how to bring out the best in your brand when you're facing the media?
So the number one thing is starting with passion and a smile and enthusiasm. If you aren't excited about your brand and what your brand represents, then how do you expect your audience members to be? Very often you see people with straight faces who are perhaps monotonous in the way that they speak, and they lack that passion. You need to deliver on the passion to excite your audience members to want to learn more about what you have to say.
That makes complete sense when you say it, but I have to confess I didn't think about it beforehand. I think maybe I felt that people would just magically feel the passion even if I wasn't expressing it in my voice or in my expression. But of course what you say makes complete sense. Now, one of your strengths for people dealing with issues in their organizations is handling crisis communications. Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot of untrained executives and other representatives of their companies deal with the media in a crisis. So what kinds of mistakes do they tend to make? So you're watching them dealing with the media and your head is in your hands and you think, don't do that.
Well, I think very often the first port of call in a crisis type situation is to a lawyer to try and protect the brand. And what we see is the lawyers step in and all the press releases and everything are drafted from a legal standpoint to protect the brand. But at the end of the day, are they really protecting the stakeholders and the clients? And are you truly considering their standpoint? So very often spokespeople will go into a crisis situation and be quite defensive in their interviews and interactions, where what they really should do is pause for a moment and understand that it's about dialogue. It's about your stakeholders feeling as though they have been heard and listened to. And very often there are complex things that are happening behind the scenes. Is that really being relayed to the stakeholders? If you are busy researching something that's currently happened, whether it be a tragedy or an investigation that's underway, have you told your stakeholders and the audience that you are actually working behind the scenes? So that's a very important thing. And I often say, connect emotionally with somebody. So when there is a crisis, think about if that were your grandmother, if that were your brother or sister who were the person affected, what would you want someone to say to them? And that is what one should deliver in a crisis type interview, so that you connect with your audience members on an emotional level, and you make them feel heard, understood, and supported. And that is what will buy longevity in your brand support from those individuals.
Mm. And I guess when people aren't listening to any of that, or they just don't know about it, they might tend to try defensively to shut down concerns ASAP, and perhaps to communicate in a robotic way or a purely cognitive way which doesn't connect on an emotional level to people's concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, look, in your career, you've interviewed and you've trained some of the world's most prominent leaders in business and politics, I know, including the former United States Secretary of State and presidential advisors. And if you think about all the people you've interviewed, could you mention maybe somebody who stands out for you as a truly brilliant communicator?
I think that David Gergen, who was an advisor at the White House, he was a fantastic communicator. He was relaxed. He was jovial in front of the lens. He could add humor into what he was saying, but at the same time, answer the question and get to the point quite quickly. His demeanor was very relaxed. It was very open, and you really connected with him as a guest. So on an international stage, I would say David Gergen most certainly. But on a local stage, I would in fact say Koos Becker. And I love the way how he is so relaxed in an interview. Something he does is he takes a complex structure, for example, explaining NASPAs, and he is able to break it down to a level that a 14-year-old could understand. And I think that is a test of a truly brilliant individual, is one that can take something so complex and explain it in such a simple way. And that's a truly intelligent way of answering questions in the media and making sure that you don't lose some of your audience members because the jargon that you use is too complex, or perhaps the structure isn't explained well. So that to me is a true gift of a fantastic communicator.
Wow. And to think about David Gergen, I'm guessing that for a lot of people who watched him in interviews, from the way you describe his demeanor, they'd come across feeling quite warm and connected to him. Here's a warm person who's telling me like it is and has no airs and graces about them.
Absolutely. And I think something that's important to remember is that people connect emotionally before they rationalize. And we connect emotionally through storytelling very often. And storytelling is a great way to connect with your audience members, and that's something that he pulls into his interviews as well.
And I suppose Koos Becker managed with his simplicity to tell a kind of narrative, tell a story around what was probably great complexity going on in the world of NASPAs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So here we have these great performers. You've seen so many of them. You've worked with so many people. And you've got this media training course, which is compact. It includes a series of brief videos in which you share your expertise. People can view them and learn from them at their convenience. What would you say are some of the most important skills that somebody who starts off by taking your course is going to emerge with?
Well, I think an important fact to keep in mind is that 75% of people have a fear of public speaking. So the number one obstacle to overcome in a media interview is overcoming those nerves and those fears around stepping in front of the lens. So conquering those nerves, what are some tactics one can use prior to your interview to prepare yourself properly, whether it be breathing techniques, whether it be simple tips and tricks that one can employ prior to a media interview. But then also, how do you prepare for that media interview? How do you walk in there confident about your subject matter, confident about what's going to happen in that media interview and how you're going to answer and deliver on your agenda? So it's that preparation side as well. And then it goes down to your body language. It goes down to your voice development, your vocal development. And then looking at more of a crisis communication side of things, how do you answer those tough questions? How do you present your organization in difficult times that puts them in the positive light that they should be in? And little tips and tricks that will help you along the way to make sure that you become better and better at your media interviews. I think one thing to remember is that every single time that you communicate, it's an opportunity for you to practice your public speaking. So it's not when you only step in front of the media, it's every single day. It's right now. It's the phone call you take. It's when you shake hands with a client. It's when you start that Zoom call. What is the professional communications etiquette that goes along with that engagement? And it really encompasses all of that.
Well, actually, I mean, the way you describe it, it sounds like an extremely intricate orchestration of everything you have, from your body language and your voice to what you have in mind for the messages you've prepared, to how you're reacting to the person you're speaking to. It sounds like a lot. It sounds daunting, and I'm kind of encouraged by this idea of seeing it as an opportunity.
It is,
and
absolutely.
Seeing everyday interactions as an opportunity to refine this. Yeah. How do you work in terms of your course? Are you kind of breaking up all these different aspects that we should try to get right into their component parts and focusing individually?
Yes, so we've got 4 different possibly topics that we cover, and within that they are broken up into individual subtopics. And within those subtopics there are exercises, there are cheat sheets to help you along the way. We have a lot of great resources that will assist you in your journey that you will use prior to any interview going forward, prior to any sort of virtual platform, Zoom call or Microsoft Teams call. You can prepare for all of that using the resources that we give you. And communications is a skill. It happens over time, and it's something that's practiced time and time again. So we're really giving you that toolkit that is needed to help you through your journey.
Yeah, I think the toolkit is a really important point, including the cheat sheets, because it's so often there'll be a kind of compact, intense period of training, and then you're on your own. And you better try and remember what you've done, because nobody's there to help you. But if you're giving a toolkit that will help people along as they try and refine themselves, I think that is crucial. That's essential. Ashlea, thank you. It was a kind of privilege to speak to a professional in this field, an accomplished professional. I really appreciate it. And anybody who's watching and listening, do check out Ashlea Evans' course on skillfully.co.za, media training. Thanks so much.